Good evening. I hope you all had a nice day before the long holiday weekend. Please remember that markets will be closed tomorrow in observance of Independence Day and the July 4th holiday. The market started off strong due to better than expected job numbers, but later gave up some gains due to coronavirus fears. Ultimately, all three major indices ended the day in the green, with the best performance coming from the Nasdaq, as it gained 0.52%. The S&P ended the day up a slightly lower 0.45%, and the Dow ended up 0.36%. Getting into the biggest news of the day, nonfarm payrolls jumped by 4.8 million in June, which beat expectations of a gain of 2.9 million. The unemployment rate fell to 11.1%, which again beat economists' estimates of an unemployment rate of 12.4%. The job gains in June easily set records, but because the government survey comes for the middle of the month, it does not account for the suspension or rollbacks in regions hit by a resurgence in coronavirus cases. Quote, the 4.8 million rise in non-farm payrolls in June provides further confirmation that the initial economic rebound has been far faster than we and most others anticipated. But that still leaves employment 9.6% below its February level, and with the spread of the virus accelerating again, we expect the recovery from here will be a lot bumpier and job gains far slower on average, end quote, according to Michael Pearce, senior U.S. economist at Capital Economics. Another big contributor to the decline of the jobless rate was a plunge in those on temporary layoff. That total fell by 4.8 million in June to 10.6 million, after a decrease of 2.7 million in May. The short-term jobless level fell by 1 million to 2.8 million. Permanent job losses also jumped, rising by 588,000 to 2.88 million, which is the highest level in more than 6 years. An alternative measure of unemployment that includes discouraged workers and the underemployed fell to 18% from 21.2%. Leisure and hospitality again accounted for the biggest jump, as the sector saw a 2.1 million gain, accounting for about 40% of the total growth. Weekly jobless claims rose more than expected last week. The Labor Department said Thursday that initial jobless claims rose by 1.43 million, which was worse than estimates of a rise of 1.38 million. The data also showed the number of continuing claims, which is the number of people receiving unemployment benefits for consecutive weeks, rose to 19.29 million, or an increase of about 59,000. Last night, after the market closed, the House of Representatives passed a bill that will extend the deadline that small businesses have to apply for aid through the Paycheck Protection Program. The goal of that program, for those who do not know, is to help small businesses continue to pay workers during the pandemic and the current lower levels of business activity. The legislation extends the deadline to request loans to August 8th, which was previously set at June 30th. The Senate has already approved the legislation, and all that is needed now is a signature from President Trump. Congress expects to consider another coronavirus relief plan later this month. Among a range of other proposals, lawmakers will decide whether to approve more small business aid. In our daily coronavirus update, new U.S. cases rose by more than 50,600 yesterday, which is the largest daily increase on record. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer signed an executive order on Wednesday closing indoor seating and bars in most of the lower part of the state to preserve its progress against COVID-19. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced yesterday that the city will not allow restaurants to reopen their indoor dining sections as was planned for July 6th. The state of Texas took a big step to try and contain the spread of the virus. Governor Greg Abbott issued an executive order today requiring residents across the state to wear face covering in public spaces in counties with 20 or more positive COVID-19 cases. Quote, Wearing a face covering in public is proven to be one of the most effective ways we have to slow the spread of COVID-19. We have the ability to keep businesses open and move our economy forward so that Texans can continue to earn a paycheck, but it requires each of us to do our part to protect one another, and that means wearing a face covering in public spaces, said Abbott. Popular coronavirus vaccine candidate Moderna had a bit of a setback today after it was announced that the company's late-stage trial for a potential coronavirus vaccine will be delayed, and possibly by a few weeks. Moderna was expected to begin a Phase 3 trial with 30,000 participants for its vaccine candidate later this month, although this was pending on the results from their mid-stage trial. The company has been adamant about getting their vaccines out in July. Moderna CEO Stéphane Bancel told CNBC, quote, "We have always said July, and I can confirm July," end quote. The sports industry had some good news today, as the National Institute of Health said that with the help of rapid coronavirus testing, which can produce results in up to an hour, there is the possibility that Americans will be able to attend sporting events in the fall, such as NFL football games. Quote, "We want to see Americans have a chance to have some normal experiences of enjoying life. I do believe this should be possible," said the director of the NIH. The NFL is optimistic that it can play games in 2020, but Dr. Fauci had other thoughts, saying last month, quote, "Unless players are essentially in a bubble, insulated from the community, and they are tested nearly every day, it would be very hard to see how football is able to be played this fall. If there is a second wave, which is certainly a possibility, and which would be complicated by the predictable flu season, football may not happen this year," end quote. This is good news regardless, and a step in the right direction. Basic materials blew every other sector out of the water, as it gained around 2% today. Consumer goods and oil and gas also performed very well. Only one sector was in the red, which was consumer services, albeit not by much. The optimism surrounding the job numbers seemed to propel every basket of stocks up. Small Cap Value did perform the best, as it gained 0.67% on the day. Tesla was the largest gainer in the S&P 500 today, as shares rose nearly 8% and ended the week up more than 16%. Shares rose due to Tesla's second quarter deliveries topping estimates. Tesla delivered more than 90,000 vehicles, which beat expectations of deliveries of 83,000. The second best day came from Noble Energy. Shares of Noble gained 7.79% on the day, but I was unable to find any piece of news that supports the gain. The biggest loser in the S&P was Dish Network, which had shares fall by 4.52%. Shares fell, but no news today supported it. Yesterday, it was announced that Dish would be taking over Boost Mobile from T-Mobile. This is Dish's first endeavor into the retail wireless market, which boasts a market of 9 million customers. Dish Network CEO said, quote, "This marks an important milestone in Dish's evolution as a connectivity company. It positions us well as we continue to build out the first virtualized, standalone 5G network in America." The other loser of the day was cruise liner Carnival. Shares of Carnival dropped about 3% on rising fears surrounding the rise in COVID-19 cases and the worry investors have about when the company will be able to get cruises going again. No company of any relevance reported earnings today. So I want to thank you for your time tonight and wish you all a great weekend. Hope you have a nice Independence Day and July 4th celebration. As always, I will see you again on Monday.